charts.
I got charts. I came ready.
It's the same data, sir, that,
It's your, yeah,
You
it's
prevented
it's
it.
your
our-
numbers.
It's our data?
I just
Yes,
put it
sir.
in charts.
Okay.
So here's your rate of administrative discharge at Fort Carson.
Okay,
So you came in here,
right.
but it's been on the way up, and it's essentially double what it was in 2009. And I guess I'd start by saying, is there any clear reason why? Why are there twice as many soldiers as a percentage of population ending up in either UCMJ or a chapter? Do you have a sense?
Because the change of command are doing their job. First, some of this is regulatory, based on what happens when a soldier comes up hot in a urinalysis. Now, even when they get a DUI, the Army says you initiate chapter packets. In 2011, 2010, a lot of chains of command were not doing that. Mostly because units were deploying. They were afraid if they discharged that soldier, they weren't going to get a replacement in time to deploy with them. So there's a lot of reasons things happen. Some irresponsible, some unprofessional, some just plain stupid. And so the problem was, in the case of 1st Brigade, when they got back, there were numerous soldiers in that category, many of which upon return, returned to their behavior. So popped another DUI, popped another urinalysis. So the bottom line is chains of command did not do the appropriate actions up front, and we paid for this past year. And the guy you should talk to about that, who's now in Kuwait, is Colonel Tyler. His brigade was they're the ones outside the norm here. They had a tremendous amount of separations for a lot of guys that should have been discharged, who were not, by UCMJ.
Has the sort of the slowdown in tempo of deployments allowed them to get more of a handle on that?
Yes, so you got, that's two parts. What's causing soldiers to do it based on multiple deployments, stress, separation, anxiety, all the things that come, financial, emotional. The slowdown means less soldiers are finding themselves in some bad situations, but because of the programs we put in place here, the school we run for pre-command, for captains and first sergeants, where the lawyers teach them what they should be doing, and all the agencies that help them, and now there's so much transparency between what the alcohol substance abuse program, it's transparent with the blotter. Some of that was visibility too. Sometimes commanders did not know their soldiers had a hot urinalysis, and of course DUI sometimes don't get reported.
Right.
Particularly if it happens outside of the gate. So, and sometimes they come up to almost a year later. So a lot of factors that determine why numbers change. But the bottom line, we're an installation that's going to have standards and discipline, how I grew up for 30 years. And again, everybody, this is not a witch hunt. This is guys who get themselves in trouble in front of a court of law.
Oh, yeah.
And they go in front of a judge and they're going home.
Yeah, the only reason I ask, I'm not saying that we shouldn't punish guys and kick them out. It's just that the rate is up. The rate is up considerably. And so I wanted to make sure that I understood what you
Yep,
saw as the drivers.
And now there's no repeat offenders on the base, and there's less offenses going on in 2013 and 2012. So it's had a great impact.
You have a similar rate in, or at least a similar shape of the rate in the IDES. And I know that's MedCom, that's not you, but
Right.
it affects your line units absolutely, that the length of the IDES process has increased every year for 4 years. It now takes, on average, at Fort Carson, 418 days to get a guy through the
Right,
IDES
but the
process.
Army average is 50 days more than that. As of today, we're the fastest producing IDES post of all.
How does it affect your line units?
Well, it's a killer. I mean, that their task is to take care of these soldiers, and that's their first responsibility. I don't think you'll meet any chain of command person out there who doesn't live that, believe that, from me on down. So it's a lengthy, bureaucratic process, and of course, the majority of that processing time is the PEB side.
Right.
Not the MEB side. So between these embedded behavioral health teams down here, dedicated PEP, we've empowered commanders with, wellness facilities in their footprint. The behavioral health team is in their footprint, but all those, the nurses, the docs, the social workers are all on that team now, and they work in the footprint to help get, on our side of the house, get these processed as best we can. And we do very well on the MEBs. Of course, doctors running NARSMs and training them how to write NARSMs
And my understanding is that they've increased the staff of people who can do this significantly.
yes, but their workload
Right.
The problem becomes how many can a doctor reasonably, the goal is about 20 a day, but that's a lot of narcoms for a doctor.
So how does it affect, one of the combat brigades?
Well,
Can they get replacements for
No.
these soldiers?
No, see, so
And so
these count on their books, again, and they're doing the right thing to take care of them, and they run the gamut of how they get in there, from pre-existing stuff before they came in the military, from twisting an ankle playing football to getting blown up in Afghanistan. So it runs of course, the physical, mental pieces are two different dynamics, but the bottom line is that this is a huge task for these young company commanders and first sergeants to take care of these guys and gals until they get their rating. It's a very long process.
Is there anything like, my understanding is that in the past, there was something called Kilo Company that was essentially like the guys who were in the IDES, the soldiers who were in IDES, would get passed from brigade to brigade depending on,
So
still there?
it's about to go away. Yeah, so it is still here. But when I got here and I heard about that, I didn't form it. I never would have formed a Kilo Company. Because what that essentially does is take a soldier out of his or her unit where people know them, battle buddies, all the systems that we believe in to make sure that soldier's getting what they need to transition. But the problem with Kilo Company is based on the brigades deploying, they bounced it around. So it belonged to 1st Brigade for a while, it belonged to 2nd Brigade for a while, and when I got here, it was in 3rd Brigade. And there were two first acts actually when I took over. The first act was to do an investigation based on the allegations that soldiers in the WTB were not being rewarded and recognized proportionally as other units on post. So I launched that was my first day in command and initiation of that investigation, which proved to be not true. And I said Kilo Company will freeze, it will stay in place as we continue to process those soldiers out. It's already shrunk, it's gone, it had a couple platoons, it's down.
As more guys work through the IDS.
Right, and as that closes out, the Kilo Company as a derivative unit here will shut down.
I understand the motivation for wanting to keep guys for their unit, but then doesn't that also, you can see why the Kilo Company was created.
No, I could.
Right, so that you can get replacements.
We used to have med hold companies.
Yeah,
So when a guy got hurt, we used to send him over to the hospital. There was a captain over there, and they used to work over at the hospital, and they were in a medical hold. But it took the onus off of the unit and let somebody else worry about it. You can argue pros and cons, but from everything that we deal with here, from knowing the family, knowing the soldier, back to standards and discipline, if you put them in an environment where it's a bunch of people running around that are all going through the same process, it's kind of a depressing, demoralizing, and it does affect good order and discipline to have that band of brothers versus being in a unit where they're tracking what they're responsible for that. There's much more leadership doing it by unit. I'm not saying it's not more painful, but it's the right thing to do. It's your soldier.
yeah.
So you take care of that soldier till the day they ETS, PCS, whatever.
How do those guys, say a company commander who's got 10% of his guys going through IDS after being in Afghanistan? Probably not uncommon here at all.
It's not uncommon at all.
He's got, 18 months about to refit, retrain, and be ready?
He's got 180 days to reset before he has to get ready for his next.
And if IDS takes 400 days, you're essentially saying to him, look, it's the right thing to do, but you're not going to have what you need. You've got guys in here that you're not going to.
Right, but those guys have normal day. I mean, all those 470 days aren't physically doing something. So
They're still performing some.
Right.
Their
So
jobs in
some of them
aspect.
some of them pull CQ, some of them go into motor pool and pull maintenance. The question becomes, what is your issue, and what's the limits of your profile?
Okay.
It doesn't mean you'd stop. The whole deal is you don't stop soldiering here just because you're in the WTB or you're in IDES. You're still a soldier till you take the uniform off. So you cut your hair, you don't smoke pot, you take care of yourself, you don't tell people to F off, you don't get DUIs, you don't go smoke spice.
Is it that same reason as that? So the dark line here is the population of the WTU going down every year.
Yeah,
Now,
oh, yeah.
I talked to
Yeah.
the colonel at the hospital about that, and he said, our standards have changed, but is it also sort of that idea of you take care of your soldier, you keep him in.
To a degree, most of that's driven by what, people that require complex care, because less people are coming home blown up. Now our brigades are going to Kuwait, where they're not getting shot at. So over time, the population of that here, those that need complex care is going to go down. But partially true what you said. When I got here, I also initiated that there was no most posts have a triad of leadership. the WTU commander, the hospital commander, and the CG. And so the packets come in from a unit, because again, it's a very easy place for a unit to say, I don't want Anderson. I'm gonna send him over to the WTB. So when I got here, there was a file packet that came through like you were giving somebody an award. And everybody hacked off on it, made their opinion, but it went to then Colonel Keenan, the former hospital commander, and she decided independently if they got in or not.
Yeah.
And I got here and said, hell no. So the packets come to me. If it's unanimous one way or the other, we don't review the case. I just sign the packet. When it's not unanimous, we sit down and we actually have the triad, and we brought the changes of command in to sit in that chair, and a couple times we brought the soldier in. He got to come defend himself and say why he should go, and I'm saying he because they were both he's, why he should go to the WTB, and they both got to go. So we use all those checks and balances, but there's not an independent person that says, you're in or you're out. And we had to educate units. Units were very confused on why you put somebody in there and what it took to get them in there. And now we have flattened that. Gosh, there hasn't been a contested WTB packet in 4 or 5 months.
Is it a similar reasons that you created the Tiger team? What was the impetus
Whole
behind that?
different, Tiger team's a whole different enchilada. So, as you know, you know a couple guys downtown who think they're experts and advocates and all this kind of stuff. The issue is there were through numerous organizations on post, and of course those two guys. And I told those two guys I really value. When I first got here, I emailed them all the time, met with them all. They were part of the process. Of course, in the end, they weren't helpful with the process. But we will never turn away when someone has an allegation that something has misfired. Somewhere in my processing, I didn't get my due shakes. That's why we stood the Tiger team up. So it's a team of professionals that are all representative of those different agencies that are part of that process to look at the case and say, okay, a mistake, wrong form, wrong policy, should have been readmitted, should have been reevaluated, should have got the second opinion, the variety of things that have popped. That's why I formed the Tiger team, to have a separate agency to make recommendations to me based on their findings. And not to shoot anybody or kill anybody, and we just said, okay, we've made a mistake, we'll fix it.
It's a way for a general to get better intelligence before he
Right,
makes his
because I'm not a
command action.
doctor, I'm not a substance abuse counselor, I'm not a social worker, I'm certainly not a psychiatrist. So it helps me get another way for me to put a check and balance in for the packets we do on a weekly basis.
And do you feel like it's been a good thing? Like
I do. It's opened up a whole bunch of communication. I sent them out and made them go interview all the embedded behavioral health teams. How's your chain of command responding to you? Do you feel you're being pressured to lean one way or the other? Do you feel they're listening to you? Are they helping you? You know, through all those there's case review committees where the chain of command sits around a table with all those professionals and they talk about Anderson. And a very open, transparent, within the HIPAA stuff, you know, obviously
sure.
we got all that stuff we got to worry about, but, you know, because the drugs are the big issue. What stuff are they on and all that kind of, which leads to many unfortunate things around here. But that's what those case review committees do. So it's a very thorough, holistic, well-rehearsed process.
you think in the end it's increased like having the proper outcome?
It's educated leaders, that goes back to why I want those soldiers in those formations. It's educated leaders about the process, who those professionals are. They've partnered, so they're habitual. So you're seeing the same Pueblo all the time if you're in 3rd Brigade, and not somebody who's sitting down saying, who are you? So it's a very formalized, methodical approach that I think has helped our units become a hell of a lot smarter, and I think it's protected our soldiers.
You're in a unique position on this post where if there's a soldier in a med board with a possible administrative separation, it comes to you. And you're the only person who decides, do they go to the court or they go to the board?
Keeps me up almost every night.
Tell me about what you look at and what you think about when you make those decisions.
Well, the issue becomes essentially what is their prognosis and what are they being treated for and what has been their medical path, and, you know, obviously most of these involve TBI, PTSD related cases.
Sure.
Almost all of them. I mean,
Almost.
almost all of them have, it's the mental side, not the physical, not a guy who's an amputee.
Right.
Not those kind of guys.
Yeah.
So the first thing is, what shape is this person in? And the hardest part is to figure out, and again, Tiger team related or not, what a doctor says, and trying to be a judge, because that's what I am, to look at that case and figure out what made that soldier do it. In a couple cases, I had the soldier sit in that chair. Was it alcohol or was it PTSD? it was alcohol, admitted. So my job is to figure out, based on the pattern, what is their pattern of misconduct? We all make mistakes, and soldiers in that population are at risk, are at a high-risk population. And we don't crucify them all for one offense, two offense, it depends. So again, there's no set rule. I gotta look at each case independently and figure out what his medical,
Right.
his or her medical condition is, and then what is the pattern they had of misconduct up to that point. So, but I think an important point, I don't know if you've talked again, but we dwell on this, but of the 13, 16 separations last year, 41 were MEB categories.
Right.
8 of which I retained in the MEB, 33 I separated. So you're talking, again, for all this stuff we're going through, proportionately less than 1% of the population. This is not a huge, it doesn't happen for a 28,000 person post. You keep walking those numbers down. This is not a significant number of the population. This morning I did too.
Yes, sir.
I let one stay in, and I separated one.
Without giving me the specifics of the soldier, because I know you have to
Well,
protect
we got
their
a couple
privacy.
cases, you shared those couple cases. I know you were talking about one this morning. That little piece of paper you had that showed the 2 examples,
Yes,
do
sir,
you
I
have
do
that?
I do not on me, sir, but we can.
I'm gonna give you a piece of paper with 2 cases of exactly.
Yeah, just so I can understand,
Just to
'cause-
give you, just to give you that snapshot.
Is it, so when you look at it, just so I make sure I understand, a lot of what you're looking at is what were the patterns of conduct of this soldier for,
Right.
through
Right,
time? Has he
right.
shown patterns of
Correct,
misconduct?
correct.
And if so,
Correct.
is this just one more of those, or is this a soldier who's got a great record
And just
And-
had a misfire.
and
Right,
in which case,
right.
this guy may be having any number of problems from these injuries?
Correct.
We need to make sure that
correct.
this
And
soldier is
it's the
taken care of.
hardest. It's the hardest thing I do,
Well-
because you cannot, obviously, you look at the facts bearing at the case, did you do X, Y, or Z? Did you shoplift? Did you get a D? All those things which are very provable.
Yeah.
What's not provable necessarily or understandable, and the medical professionals have the same challenge. Sometimes you get different diagnoses, conflicting, they change their mind, and you're the guy that has to try and.
You operate in the gray area, but you have to make a black and
But I
white
gotta,
decision.
but all we've done since I've been here is message, if you soldier, obviously some people are gonna gain a little bit more weight because of their, things are gonna happen, but I'm talking about from a conduct, performance perspective. You soldier, you do your job, we're gonna do right by you. But guys that start being disrespectful, steal from their buddies, all those things that bring down, the discipline here on the post, we're not gonna tolerate that.
Yeah, I hear you. You said that right when you came in, you did a number of things. I noticed that I think almost the same day you got here, Army Times did a story on how Fort Carson was using way more Chapter 10s than they used to.
Right.
And critics were saying
Right.
they're using this as a way to get guys out quickly, particularly if they have MEBs pending. And there was a lot of evidence in that story that suggested
Right.
they were right.
Right.
Did you do reforms to that? Because I noticed that after you got here, the number of Chapter 10s dropped.
Oh, I don't even think about that. We have as the judge, I have to be fair and consistent. So we look at, I could give a shit what kind I give them. I look at every case, and then based on what that pattern of misconduct is, determines which way it just so happens, we did less, it wasn't because of that article. It's just the way the facts bore out based on what kind of misconduct those particular soldiers did.
Okay.
So we still do a fair share, but it's never a matter of, oh shit, we're doing too many this month, we better stop.
Right.
I could, again, it doesn't matter what they put in the paper or what you put in the paper.
How's it different for you when a Chapter 14 comes to your desk versus a Chapter 10? Does it look the same? Do you get the same information on the case?
Oh, I get a packet, every one of these packets every docket's about that thick. Oh, absolutely. So we look at, what do they write? What's the chain of command say? And particularly on the patterns, the very front page of the folder has a very quick summary of what this person has done. Right on top, but then inside are all the factoids, the evidence that goes with it, court stuff and all that kind of stuff.
What would you say would help your line commanders the most in terms of, you said that you're dealing with very gray areas with different diagnoses and injuries a lot of times you can't see, and what is misconduct, what isn't. What would help those commanders from company level up to a brigade level in terms of like dealing with this?
Well, we do a lot of programs here to educate them on everything you're talking about. And then through these partnership with these teams and the footprint, that dialogue, you got a question, go ask them. So the doors are open now, that the dialogue is significantly enhanced, significantly. It used to be hit or miss.
Are these new things that have started to roll out since you've been here?
Yeah, we started, we're the first post to have embedded behavioral health teams.
Right.
You know, we do a lot of, we work,
Right.
there's nothing we work harder than this topic.
Yeah, I
There's
actually,
nothing in my Army career that I've worked harder than this topic. Nothing. In 31 years.
why is it,
Nothing.
why is it that important or
Because we gotta do the right thing.
labor intensive?
Well, because it's hard. So if you're trying to take care of soldiers and you do the right thing, it takes a lot of effort.
Yeah.
And there's nothing we spend more time on than this topic. Ask anybody out there on this footprint.
Yeah.
Ask anybody outside. Go ask anybody. What do you spend the most time on? What's the hardest thing you do? We could all go to the range and shoot targets all day. He might miss some. I'll hit him. That's easy shit.
Pointing at you.
That's easy shit. This is the hard, and we've got more programs and processes here than anywhere else in the Army.
I heard that other posts are interested in the Tiger Team concept?
Yes, they're trying to copy it. When we gave that option to your two buddies, had them on as part of the team, of course, they wouldn't communicate, they wouldn't share.
Don't call my two.
Well, I gotta
buddies,
call them
come on.
something. I really don't wanna, I should call them something else. but
I think
can't.
you've been briefed in a way that suggests that I'm on their side.
I would think by everything we've shown you, something keeps, when I brought your publisher in here, something keeps pushing this to the forefront when there's nothing there. And that just is starting to annoy me.
I'm sorry.
I got a lot to do, and we shouldn't be defending ourselves when the facts all bear out. I wouldn't be in this job, these guys wouldn't be in these jobs. We're responsible, professional, and if you get any reputation in this community with Fort Carson, we share everything we can share. Minus HIPAA and criminal stuff,
I hear you.
period. But when I got people out there saying they're mistreating soldiers, I take that personal.
I don't think it's, I won't argue with you, but I want you to know that the reason I'm here is because I want to know exactly what you
Okay,
guys are
well,
doing,
that's
and I take you at your word. But since you brought them up, why are those guys not allowed on post anymore?
Well, because they've interfered with the process, they've misrepresented the truth, they've misrepresented who they are, and they've interfered with cases on post.
Are there specific
If
cases that
they
brought
did,
this to a
yes, they
fore?
are. Yes, there are. If they did what they did on Fort Carson in downtown, you know who'd be coming after them? The DA. I can't do that. I wish I could. But they've physically interfered with cases of soldiers going through this process on Fort Carson. That will not be tolerated. And they know exactly what they did. Not all this bullshit, we're confused, we don't know what we're doing.
That's what they told me.
Oh, I'm sure they did. Because they are not trustworthy, honest people.
They've worked with every other general here, and I'm not saying that they're not obnoxious, because I've met them. I know they're obnoxious. But no one's ever banned them from post before. Can you give me an idea more specifically of like, what precipitated this? Because people in the community are gonna look at this and say, well, those guys are outside watchdogs.
No, there's not one.
And
there's
why
not
are they
one-
being kicked
There's not
off
one
post?
person in this community that's worried about those two. Everybody from Senator Udall, who sat right here, to everybody, to the governor, there's nobody worried about those two. Because they're not reputable people. So the bottom line is, they know exactly what they did, but they physically and personally interfered with the separation of a soldier.
Physically?
Physically. And they lie. They're not lawyers. They don't speak for me, and they can't be on a defense. I think you can only be on a defense team if you're a lawyer.
Well, that's at the lawyer's request in the course.
Well, no, if they ask them to come do something,
Yes, sir.
but you can't say I'm on the defense team. That's, doesn't work that way.
Okay.
There are no defense teams as of now.
Right.
Okay.
But if they're called to be a witness or whatever, so be it. But that's,
Was this tied to, they suggested to me the only thing they could think of that got them kicked off was their actions in the case of a soldier named John Betancourt?
was that the case?
Yes, sir. Well, that's one of the cases.
Well, there's more than one. I
Okay.
mean, but there was one particular one that got way out of line. I don't remember. I'm just telling you that. I don't
Sure.
know all the details. I really don't care. The issue is they went down to our processing center, physically got involved in an escort, took a soldier away from the escort, told them they were working on my behalf, et cetera, et cetera. You don't
Okay.
do things like that.
Okay. What do you see as changing now that the Army's starting to draw down, the deployments are, regular deployments like we've had for the last 10 years are
Well, still
coming
more-
to an end.
Right.
Coming to an end. How's that gonna change how all this stuff happens? The stuff with the Tiger team?
Nothing. No, these processes are here. Again, I'm leaving. I would hope the guy that comes in behind me maintains them. Of course, he's gonna be a different judge.
Sure.
I'm taking my robe, I'm putting my robe on someplace else. But, how he sees justice, how he worked, I mean, he'll be changing out this, it's a new SJA team. It's a new commander, so how they interpret UCMJ and administer justice is, but hopefully the Tiger team lasts the test of time. Embedded behavioral health teams aren't going away. All of our programs and courses we have aren't going away. Like we said, Kilo will go away. The WTB will continue to shrink. She's changing command in a couple weeks, so commanders do change philosophy, priorities, guidance, as they have a right to do. But the systems to keep this process alive and well won't change at all.
Is there anything that needs to happen to speed up the IDAS process that you as a commanding general can do anything
Well,
about? I understand
we-
so much of it is out of the hands
No,
of anyone.
we're piloting one thing modeled off of Fort Bragg. It's called the fast track. If you're no kidding sick, something's wrong with you, and you don't want to screw around, there are some people that malinger in that population,
In the IDAS population, absolutely.
that want to ride that baby for 20 years, if they could. We are piloting it here now. I think it might affect only about maybe 10% of the population. We're guessing. We don't know. But that means you come in and say, hey, you know what? I got something wrong with me. I don't want to screw around here. Because a lot of it, the bigger part is the appeals process.
Takes a lot of
So
time.
everybody gets a percentage X and they say that ain't good enough and they want to appeal. Well,
What have they got to lose?
nothing. But some folks take the money and run. So the question becomes, if you really, maybe you got a job out there. Maybe you got a school day that's gonna start. So we have a record here of we got one person out of here in 93 days. I don't know if McGrath told you that.
Huh, no, he didn't.
So it can be done. So if you come in, don't play games, say, this is what's wrong with me. This is the deal. The doctor looks at you, it's cut and dry, and off your stuff goes, and you don't miss your appointments. A lot of stupid things happen.
Yeah.
You miss a VA appointment, you just bought yourself another month or more. Just like that.
Yeah,
Now, the question becomes, why'd you miss it? Did someone make you do something that you weren't supposed to, you shouldn't have been doing? You chose to sleep in that day? You were high that day? Whatever.
or
So-
more difficult than that, you have a TBI.
Right, correct. So what's causing you to miss that appointment? So, but if you really want to go on the fast track, so we did it, we've got, 93 days versus the average for the Army now, it's like 475 or something like that. So that ain't bad.
No.
But you could opt to go on the fast track plan when you get into this contract.
Is that brand new?
Yes,
Brand new at Carson.
brand new here, started at Bragg, we stole it.
Okay.
See, so again, we don't have a corner on the market,
Yeah.
we lead in most things. It's the
But if it
post, it's
works-
the post with the highest retention in the Army. There's a lot of things going on here that show that people do care, and it's a great place to be. But if we hear something out there that feels like it's got it's worth it, the juice is worth the squeeze, we're on it. So we kicked that off about a month ago.
Gotcha. How many guys, any idea how many
It's
people are
all,
in there?
it's all too,
It's all brand new.
it's all too immature.
Okay.
But we had a guy do it by accident. That guy I'm talking about was before we formalized the process. A guy that came, wanted to go through the process, and 93 days.
Have you
We
ever,
have time for one more question.
have you ever gotten any reports, any numbers that stick with you about how many people in that IDAS process are just bilking the system?
It's hard. I mean, it's hard.
That's the tough
And
part,
like you
right?
said, the mental piece, TBI, again, this is very hard this is like saying I got chronic back pain. Well, what's that mean? So it's hard to figure out sometimes, are they truly ill? Just like you said, did they skip the appointment because there's something mentally wrong with them or not? And I tell you, I mean, it's, again, so you're asking young captains, 30-year-old guys, platoon leaders, 25 years old, platoon sergeants maybe in their 30s, but little old second lieutenants coming out of ROTC at, Texas A&M, is this guy sick or is this guy not sick?
When the doctors can't even
And the
tell for
doctors
sure.
can't, the doctors don't know for sure.
I talked to the top research doctor in the Army, and he said, you know what we really need? is an absolute diagnostic test that says, yes, you really have it, or no, you don't.
Well, we've got a couple pilots going on.
Yeah, and he said it's coming.
You know, it is, and there's lots
But
of.
it's not here yet.
Predictors are there, and to include the helmet, the TBI sensors now that our Second Brigade wore when they were in Canada.
Mm-hmm,
So at least you've got, instead of saying the guy was in a blast, okay, well, what's that mean?
Yeah.
Well, he was in a blast of this magnitude, we know what that means, and based on the impact, pretty damn sure that guy's got a problem.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so the technologies are coming, and again, everybody is very passionate and determined, because if we could know the answers better, quicker, more thoroughly, it'll help us with all these things you're asking about.
Absolutely.
But there's no pill you can take, or wake up one day and say, I got this shit figured out. So it's a physical struggle, literally, every day.
Well, I appreciate your candor and your time.
No, thanks for coming. Anything you need on this, again, we'll share whatever we can share.